Most people are busy, but very few are actually productive. We fill our days with tasks, meetings, and endless to-do lists, feeling proud just because we're tired at the end of it. But here's the truth, being busy doesn't mean you're achieving what matters. In fact, you might be working long hours but getting very little done. That's where the 80-20 rule changes everything. This isn't some abstract theory, it's a powerful reality found everywhere in life. A small fraction of your efforts produces most of your results. And chances are, you're already living this imbalance without even realizing it. This chapter pulls no punches. Stop wasting time on what doesn't matter. Instead, learn how to focus only on the 20% that drives 80% of your success, in work, in life, and beyond. Ready to unlock the secret to doing less, and achieving more? Download the full audiobook now and join the Alliance Mindset Circle, link in the description or in the book. Chapter 1. What the hell is the 80-20 rule? The rule that explains everything, but nobody talks about. You've probably heard the phrase work smarter, not harder. But have you ever stopped to ask what that actually means? It's not just a motivational slogan. It's a principle grounded in reality, one that has been observed across centuries, industries, and even personal lives. That principle is the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto Principle. And it might be the most powerful idea you'll ever learn about productivity, success, and decision-making. Here's the short version. 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. That's not a theory. It's a pattern that shows up again and again, whether we like it or not. Let's break that down. Where did this rule come from? The 80-20 rule was first discovered in 1896 by an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. He noticed something strange while studying wealth distribution in Italy. 20% of the population owned 80% of the land. At first, he thought it was a quirk of Italian society. But when he looked further, he found similar patterns in other countries, and even in completely unrelated fields. For example, in business, 80% of sales often come from 20% of customers. In software development, 80% of bugs are caused by 20% of the errors. In personal relationships, 80% of your happiness may come from 20% of your friends. Pareto didn't call it the 80-20 rule, but others did later. And once this concept entered the public consciousness, people started seeing it everywhere. Because it's true. How the 80-20 rule works in real life. Let's take a few everyday examples so you can see how deeply this rule affects your world. Business example. Imagine you own a small clothing store. You have hundreds of items in stock: shirts, pants, dresses, accessories. You think variety is key to success. But here's the ugly truth: 80% of your revenue comes from just 20% of your products. Those could be a few best-selling t-shirts or a couple of popular jeans styles. Most entrepreneurs keep trying to add more products, thinking it will boost profits. But the opposite is true. If they focused only on their top-performing items, they'd sell more with less effort and save time and money on inventory. Work example. As an employee, you spend hours every day answering emails, attending meetings, filling out reports, and completing tasks. You're busy, very busy. But if you look closely, 80% of your performance reviews and promotions are based on 20% of your work. Maybe it's one big project, a few key presentations, or a single client relationship that everyone keeps talking about. Everything else? Important sounding, but ultimately insignificant. Personal life example. Even outside of work, the rule applies. Think about your social life. You probably have dozens of contacts, but 80% of your emotional support, joy, and connection likely come from 20% of your relationships. And yet, many of us waste time maintaining superficial connections instead of deepening the few that matter most. Why most people ignore the 80-20 rule? Despite how obvious and useful it seems, most people ignore the 80-20 rule. Why? Because it forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Not everything matters equally. We like to believe that if we work hard enough and do all the things, we'll eventually succeed. But the 80-20 rule says something different. It says that 80% of your stress comes from 20% of your problems. 80% of your wasted time comes from 20% of your habits. 80% of your unhappiness comes from 20% of your circumstances. If you want to improve your life, stop pretending that all inputs are equal. Start identifying the vital few causes that drive most of your outcomes, and focus on them. Because when you do that, you unlock something incredible, massive results with minimal effort. Stop pretending everything matters equally. Here's a challenge for you. Take a moment to reflect on your work, your relationships, your goals. Ask yourself, what are the 20% of actions that produce 80% of my results? What are the 20% of people who bring me the most joy? What are the 20% of products, services, or habits that create the most value in my life? Once you start asking these questions, you'll begin to see the 80-20 rule everywhere. And that awareness alone will change how you make decisions forever. This book is not about working longer hours. It's not about grinding harder or pushing through burnout. It's about working differently, by focusing on what truly drives results. Are you ready to stop wasting time, energy, and attention on the 80% that doesn't matter? Chapter 2, Why You're Ignoring It, and Paying the Price. You've heard of 80-20 before, so why aren't you using it? Let's be honest. You've heard of the 80-20 rule before. Maybe you read about it in a productivity blog, saw it in a motivational video, or someone mentioned it during a team meeting. And yet, here you are. Still working long hours. Still overwhelmed. Still not seeing the results you want. Why? Because knowing the 80-20 rule isn't the hard part. Acting on it is. And that's where most people fail. This chapter dives deep into the uncomfortable truth. You're ignoring the 80-20 rule not because it doesn't work, but because applying it forces you to make decisions you're afraid to make. The 80-20 rule is uncomfortable, and that's the point. The 80-20 rule isn't just a productivity hack. It's a mirror. One that shows you exactly what's working and what's not. It tells you that 80% of your time at work is wasted. That 80% of your relationships drain more than they give. That 80% of your tasks don't matter. That kind of honesty is rarely welcome. Most people prefer the illusion of progress. They like checking off to-do lists, going to meetings, and staying busy, even if none of it leads anywhere meaningful. Because facing the truth means making hard choices. It means cutting out people who hold you back. It means saying no to projects that sound good but go nowhere. It means letting go of habits that feel safe but aren't helping you grow. And for many, that's just too much to handle. Why most people avoid 80-20 thinking? 1. Fear of missing out, FOMO. One of the biggest reasons we ignore the 80-20 rule is FOMO, the fear that if we cut something out, we might miss an opportunity. What if that boring client turns into a big account next year? What if that friend who drains you suddenly changes their life? What if that task you hate ends up being the one thing that gets you promoted? We cling to the hope that maybe things will change, even when there's no evidence they will. But here's the reality. If it hasn't produced results in the past, it probably won't in the future. And holding on to low-value activities just to avoid missing out is a surefire way to stay stuck. 2. The myth of equal value. Another reason people ignore 80-20 is the belief that everything must be treated equally. You were taught growing up that all effort matters. That every task deserves attention. That loyalty and consistency are virtues. But in the real world, that mindset is a trap. In business, 80% of your profits come from 20% of your customers. In life, 80% of your happiness comes from 20% of your experiences. So why treat everything like it's equally important? Because it feels safer. Because it avoids conflict. Because choosing the few over the many requires courage. 3. Fear of hurting others. Applying the 80-20 rule often means saying no. No to unproductive meetings. No to draining relationships. No to low-priority tasks. But saying no can feel harsh. Even selfish. Many people stay stuck in mediocrity simply because they don't want to hurt someone's feelings. They'd rather suffer silently than risk offending a coworker, boss, or friend. Here's the truth. If you keep doing things that don't matter, you're not helping anyone, not even them. You're wasting your time, energy, and potential. And that's not noble, it's self-sabotage disguised as kindness. 4. Laziness in thinking. Yes, laziness. Most people never stop to analyze what's actually working and what isn't. They operate on autopilot. They follow routines, do what's always been done, and react to whatever pops up in their inbox. Why? Because thinking critically takes effort. Identifying the vital few from the trivial many requires reflection, data, and discipline. It's easier to just keep doing stuff than to figure out what really works. But remember, effort without direction is just exhaustion. The cost of ignoring 80/20ths. Ignoring the 80/20 rule doesn't just slow you down, it locks you in place. You'll continue working long hours with little to show for it. Spending time with people who bring you down. Sticking with jobs, products, or strategies that barely move the needle. And worst of all, you'll blame yourself. You'll think you're not disciplined enough, not smart enough, not lucky enough. But the real problem isn't you. The real problem is that you're trying to force success by doing more, instead of designing your life around what already works. How to start embracing 80/20? It starts with awareness. Ask yourself, what are the 20% of actions that produce 80% of my results? Which people, habits, or tasks are draining me the most? What could I eliminate tomorrow that wouldn't impact my life negatively? Once you start asking these questions, you begin to shift from passive reaction to active design. And that's where the magic happens. You can't afford not to act. The 80/20 rule isn't optional. It's not a trick or a shortcut. It's a fact of life. You're either using it to your advantage, or letting it work against you. So ask yourself, are you going to keep pretending everything matters equally? Or are you finally ready to stop wasting time on the 80% that doesn't move the needle? Your answer will determine whether you stay stuck, or finally start getting ahead. Chapter 3, Your time is not infinite, use it like it's rare. Time is the only resource you can't get back. You can earn more money. You can replace lost opportunities. You can rebuild broken relationships. But once a minute is gone, it's gone forever. Time is the only truly non-renewable resource you have. And yet, most people treat it like it's infinite. They waste hours every day on things that don't matter, meetings with no purpose, endless email threads, social media scrolling, meaningless tasks, and obligations that drain energy without delivering results. This chapter is about changing that. We're going to show you how to treat your time like gold, because that's exactly what it is. And we'll do it using one powerful lens, the 80/20 rule. The brutal truth about how you spend your time. Let's start with a hard question. What did you do yesterday that moved the needle in your life or work? Be honest. Did that meeting really change anything? Did that hour of social media improve your mood or career? Did those emails get you closer to your goals? If you're like most people, the answer is, not much. Because here's the reality. 80% of the time you spend delivers just 20% of your results. That means most of your day is filled with low-impact activities, things that feel productive but don't actually contribute to real progress. The good news? There's also a small portion of your time, maybe just a few hours a week, where you're doing the things that truly matter. That's your 20%. Once you identify that 20%, everything changes. How to audit your time ruthlessly. Most people have no idea where their time goes. They live their lives on autopilot, reacting to whatever comes next instead of intentionally choosing what deserves attention. To break free from this cycle, you need to audit your time, and do it ruthlessly. Here's how. Step 1. Track everything for 1 week. Yes, everything. Use a simple spreadsheet or app to log every activity you do throughout the day, along with how long it takes and how valuable it was. This might feel tedious at first, but it's eye-opening. You'll start to see patterns emerge, and they won't always be pretty. Step 2. Categorize your activities. Group your daily tasks into categories. High value, moves the needle. Low value, feels important but doesn't help. Waste, no value at all. Then ask yourself, which 20% of my time gives me 80% of my results? That's your high value zone. That's where you want to spend more time. Everything else? It needs to be cut, delegated, or minimized. Step 3. Eliminate the 80% that doesn't matter. Now comes the hard part, and the most powerful one. Start cutting out the 80% of activities that aren't giving you meaningful returns. Examples include endless email chains that go nowhere, meetings with no clear agenda, tasks that could be automated or outsourced, obligations that don't align with your goals, social media that drains more than it inspires. Ask yourself, if I stopped doing this tomorrow, would anyone notice? Would anything important fall apart? If the answer is no, then stop doing it. Real-life examples of time 80/20 wins. Example 1. A busy executive learns the truth. A CEO spent a week tracking his time and discovered something shocking. He was spending over 10 hours a week in meetings that had no clear outcome. When he eliminated just half of them and delegated the rest, he freed up over 20 hours per month, time he used to focus on strategy, key clients, and personal growth. Result? His company grew faster than ever before. Example 2. A student who cut out distractions. A college student realized she was spending 3+ hours a day on social media and messaging apps. She decided to limit her use to 30 minutes a day. She used the extra time to study, read, and build a side project. Within a semester, her grades improved, and she launched her first website, which later turned into a profitable business. Example 3. A parent reclaiming family time. A working parent found that they were spending evenings buried in chores and digital noise instead of connecting with their kids. After auditing their schedule, they hired help for routine tasks, unsubscribed from newsletters, and turned off notifications after 7 p.m. Suddenly, there was space for conversations, playtime, and real connection. The hidden cost of wasted time. Wasting time isn't just about poor productivity. It affects your mental health. Constant busyness leads to stress and burnout. Relationships, you're physically present but mentally absent. Opportunities, you miss chances to grow, learn, and create. Happiness, you end up feeling like life is passing you by. Time wasted is opportunity lost, and unlike money or resources, you can never recover it. Treat your time like a fortune, because it is. Your time is your greatest asset. Not your skills. Not your network. Not your education. Your time. Every choice you make about how to spend it shapes your future, whether you realize it or not. So stop treating time like it's abundant. Start treating it like it's rare. Because it is. And when you apply the 80/20 rule to your schedule, you begin to live with intention, clarity, and control. You stop wasting time on the 80% that gives you nothing, and start investing it in the 20% that changes everything. Chapter 4. Work smarter, not harder, focus on the vital few. Your job isn't to do more, it's to do what matters most. You've probably heard the phrase work smarter, not harder 1,000 times. But what does it really mean? It means this. You don't need to do more tasks, you need to focus on the few that matter most. Your time is limited. Your energy is finite. And yet, most people try to tackle everything at once. They say yes to every request, chase every opportunity, and try to improve every weakness. That's not strategy. That's exhaustion disguised as effort. Instead of trying to do it all, you should be doing the opposite, narrowing your focus to the vital few, the small set of activities, habits, clients, or products that produce the vast majority of your success. And once you find them, double down. Ruthlessly. Because when you focus on the vital few, you unlock disproportionate results with less effort. What exactly is the vital few? The term comes from the Pareto Principle, the 80-20 rule. In any situation, a small number of causes create the majority of effects. Those key causes are your vital few. They could be the 20% of clients who bring in 80% of your revenue, the 20% of tasks that generate 80% of your performance reviews, the 20% of products that make up 80% of your sales, the 20% of habits that lead to 80% of your progress. These aren't just random numbers, they're patterns. Patterns you can observe, measure, and act upon. Once you identify your vital few, you stop wasting time on the rest. You stop chasing distractions. You stop pretending everything is equally important. You start focusing like a laser on what actually works. How to identify your vital few, a step-by-step process. Finding your vital few isn't guesswork. It's a process. Here's how to do it. Step 1. Gather data. Start by collecting real information about your work, life, or business. Ask questions like, which clients/customers bring in the most money? Which products/services sell the best? Which tasks give me the biggest return on effort? Which relationships energize me the most? Use tools like spreadsheets, CRM software, journaling, or even simple observation to gather insights. Step 2. Analyze for imbalances. Look for the imbalances. Which 20% of something is responsible for 80% of the result? For example, in your job, are there 1 or 2 projects that consistently get praised or lead to promotions? In your business, are certain marketing channels driving the majority of new customers? In your personal life, do specific habits, like exercise, reading, or meditation, have an outsized impact on your mood and productivity? This step requires honesty and objectivity. Don't let emotion cloud your judgment. Step 3. Rank and prioritize. Once you've identified the top performers, rank them. Which one gives you the highest return? Which one makes the biggest difference? Then prioritize them above everything else. If you're a writer, maybe it's publishing 1 high-quality article per week instead of 5 rushed posts. If you're a manager, maybe it's coaching your top performers rather than spending equal time on everyone. Prioritization is power. Step 4. Eliminate or delegate the rest. Now comes the hard part, and the most powerful one. Everything that doesn't fall into your vital few category needs to go. Or at least be minimized. Examples. Stop doing low-value tasks that could be automated or delegated. Say no to meetings without clear outcomes. Drop clients or projects that drain time but offer little reward. Cut out habits or routines that don't support your goals. Remember, saying no to the trivial many is how you say yes to the vital few. Real-life examples of focusing on the vital few. Example 1. A freelancer who doubled income by cutting half her clients. A freelance graphic designer had over 50 clients. She was constantly stressed and working late hours. After analyzing her income data, she discovered that just 10 clients accounted for 80% of her revenue. She politely let go of the remaining 40, some were slow-paying, some were difficult, and others barely generated enough to justify the effort. Within months, her stress dropped, her income increased, and her quality of work improved. By focusing on her vital few, she created space for growth. Example 2. A manager who stopped trying to fix everyone. A team leader was frustrated because half his team wasn't performing well. He spent most of his time trying to coach the underperformers. After applying the 80-20 rule, he realized that 80% of the team's output came from just 20% of his employees. He shifted his focus. Instead of spreading himself thin, he invested heavily in developing his top performers, giving them more responsibility, recognition, and resources. Result? Productivity soared, and the lower-performing employees either stepped up or naturally moved on. Example 3. A writer who went viral by focusing on one platform. An aspiring author tried posting content everywhere: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Medium. Nothing gained traction. he decided to track engagement and found that 80% of his audience came from just one platform, Twitter. So he stopped trying to be everywhere and focused entirely on Twitter. Within 6 months, his following exploded. He landed book deals, speaking gigs, and interviews. All because he doubled down on the vital few. Why most people fail to focus on the vital few? Even after identifying their vital few, many people still struggle to stick with them. Why? Because they fear missing out on other opportunities. They feel guilty about cutting things out. They're used to being busy, so slowing down feels wrong. They lack discipline to stay focused on the same thing long term. But here's the truth. Success doesn't come from doing everything well, it comes from doing a few things exceptionally well. The people who achieve extraordinary results aren't necessarily smarter or luckier. They're simply better at identifying and focusing on the vital few. Focus is a superpower. Focus isn't just about attention, it's about intention. It's about making deliberate choices about where to invest your time, energy, and effort. And when you apply the 80-20 rule to your life and work, you begin to see what truly matters. You stop scattering your efforts. You stop chasing distractions. You stop pretending everything is equally important. Instead, you zero in on the vital few, and let them carry the weight. Because when you do that, you stop working harder. You start working smarter. And that's when real progress begins. Chapter 5, Fire Clients, Friends, and Habits That Suck Your Life Dry. If it isn't helping you win, it's making you lose. Let's cut straight to the point. If something isn't helping you win, it's making you lose. That could be a client who never pays on time. A friend who constantly drags you down. Or a habit that wastes your time without giving anything back. You've spent years holding on to things because you were afraid of what would happen if you let go. But here's the truth. Letting go is not failure. It's strategy. And in this chapter, we're going to show you how to do it, with confidence, clarity, and no guilt. The hidden cost of holding on. Most people don't realize how much energy they waste trying to make bad situations work. They stay stuck in unproductive relationships, keep working with clients who complain but never pay, and follow routines that feel like obligations instead of choices. Why? Because they confuse loyalty with value. Because they fear being seen as harsh or selfish. Because they believe that finishing what they started is always the right move. But none of those beliefs are true. In fact, they're holding you back. Every minute you spend tolerating low-value clients, draining friends, or useless habits is a minute you're not spending on the people, projects, and possibilities that actually lift you up. And that's the real cost of holding on. How to identify what, or who, needs to go? The first step to cleaning house is knowing what needs to be cleaned. Ask yourself these questions. 1. Is this person or thing giving me more than it takes? Think about every major relationship, obligation, or task in your life. Do they give more than they take? Or do they drain more than they return? If the answer is they take more, then it's time to reconsider their place in your life. 2. Would I choose this again today? This applies to clients, jobs, relationships, even daily routines. Would you choose this again today, knowing everything you now know? If the answer is no, then why are you still doing it? 3. Am I staying because of fear? Fear of being alone. Fear of confrontation. Fear of missing out. These fears are powerful, but they're also poor decision makers. Don't let fear dictate your future. How to fire a client professionally. Firing a client doesn't have to be dramatic. In fact, it should be done with grace and professionalism. Here's how to do it right. Step 1. Recognize the signs. They underpay or never pay on time. They demand constant attention with little return. They disrespect boundaries or timelines. They drag down your mood and morale. Step 2. Be honest but kind. You don't need to burn bridges. Just be clear. Example message. Thank you for your business over the past few months. After careful consideration, I've decided to shift my focus toward clients whose needs align more closely with my current capacity and expertise. I wish you all the best moving forward. Step 3. Make room for better opportunities. Once you fire a bad client, immediately start filling that space with better ones. Raise your rates. Be more selective. Invest time in marketing to high-quality prospects. Because when you remove the dead weight, you create space for growth. How to let go of toxic relationships. Not all relationships are meant to last forever. Some are only meant to teach you something, and once the lesson is learned, it's okay to walk away. Here's how to let go of draining friendships or family ties. 1. Set boundaries first. Before cutting someone off entirely, try setting firm boundaries. Say no to late-night calls. Limit interactions to neutral settings. Stop engaging in toxic conversations. Sometimes, simply reducing contact is enough to restore balance. 2. Stop explaining yourself. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing peace over stress. You can say something like, "I've realized our lives are going in different directions, and I think it's best if we take some space from each other." That's honest. That's kind. That's final. 3. Don't wait for permission. You don't need approval to stop being miserable. If a relationship consistently brings you down, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you have every right to end it. It's not mean. It's self-respect. How to break bad habits that waste your life. Some habits aren't just unhelpful, they're actively destroying your potential. Examples include scrolling social media for hours, overcommitting to tasks that don't matter, saying yes to every request, working late every night out of habit, not necessity. Here's how to break them. 1. Replace, don't just remove. Cutting out a habit without replacing it leaves a void, which often leads to relapse. Instead of doom scrolling before bed, read for 20 minutes. Instead of checking email constantly, schedule specific times for it. Instead of saying yes to every meeting, ask if it's truly needed. Replace the old with the new, and consistency follows. 2. Use environment design. Make good habits easy. Make bad habits hard. Uninstall apps you waste time on. Turn off notifications. Keep distractions out of reach during focused work. Your environment shapes your behavior more than willpower ever will. 3. Track progress. Habits stick when you see results. Use a simple habit tracker or journal to monitor improvements over time. Each checkmark reinforces that you're building something better and leaving the worst behind. Letting go is freedom. Letting go of people, clients, and habits that don't serve you isn't cruel. It's courageous. It's the moment you stop wasting your life on things that don't deserve it. And once you do it, really do it, you'll wonder why you waited so long. Because when you remove what's dragging you down, you finally have room to rise. Chapter 6. The 80-20 Diet, Eat Better, with Less Effort. Most diets fail because they try to fix everything at once. You've tried it before. New year, new you. You dive headfirst into a strict meal plan, track every calorie, eliminate entire food groups, and swear off sugar, carbs, or whatever the latest diet guru says is evil this week. And for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, it works. Then life happens. You get tired. You go out with friends. You hit a stressful patch at work. And just like that, the diet collapses. Why? Because most diets are built on the flawed assumption that you have to control everything all the time. But here's the truth. You don't need to overhaul your entire diet to see real results. You only need to fix the 20% of foods causing 80% of your weight gain, bloating, fatigue, or poor health. That's the power of the 80-20 diet. What is the 80-20 diet? The 80-20 diet isn't a rigid meal plan or another fad. It's a mindset. It's about identifying the small number of foods or habits that are doing the most damage and cutting them out. Once you do that, the rest often falls into place. Because in nutrition, as in life, a small number of causes create the majority of effects. For example, 80% of your sugar intake probably comes from 20% of your meals. 80% of your cravings are triggered by just a few foods. 80% of your energy crashes come from 20% of what you eat. Instead of trying to control everything, focus on eliminating what matters most. That's how you make lasting change, with less effort, not more. How to find your 80-20 foods. Finding your personal 80-20 foods takes some observation, but it's simple once you know what to look for. Here's how to do it. Step 1. Track what you eat for 1 week. Use a food journal, app, or spreadsheet to log everything you consume for 7 days. Include meals, snacks, drinks, especially sugary ones, portions, how you feel afterward, energy, mood, digestion. This isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Step 2. Identify patterns. Look for patterns like: do you always crave snacks after dinner? Does drinking soda lead to headaches or sluggishness? Are certain foods followed by bloating, fatigue, or cravings? Ask yourself, which 20% of my foods cause me the most problems? Those might be sugary drinks, late-night snacking, fast food, processed snacks, alcohol. Once you find them, you've found your target list. Case study, a real-life 80-20 diet win. Meet Sarah, a working mom who struggled with fatigue, weight gain, and constant sugar cravings. She decided to try the 80-20 approach. After tracking her food for a week, she realized that 80% of her sugar came from just 2 things. Soda. Even though she called it diet soda, she was still craving sweets. Chocolate bars she ate after putting the kids to bed. She cut those 2 items completely. No other restrictions. No calorie counting. Within 4 weeks, her energy improved, cravings dropped, and she lost 5 pounds, effortlessly. All because she focused on the vital few. Why extreme diets don't work, and why 80-20 does. Extreme diets fail for one big reason. They demand too much. They require perfection. And perfection doesn't last. The 80-20 diet works because it's realistic. It gives you freedom while still creating massive results. Here's how. White heavy checkmark: no deprivation. You're not cutting out everything you love, just the worst offenders. White heavy checkmark: no willpower required. Once the biggest problem foods are gone, the temptation fades naturally. White heavy checkmark: sustainable results. You're making small changes that compound over time, not temporary fixes. White heavy checkmark: personalized approach. There's no one-size-fits-all plan. You identify what harms you the most, not someone else's version of healthy. How to eliminate the worst foods without feeling deprived. Letting go of unhealthy foods doesn't have to feel like punishment. Try these strategies. 1. Replace, don't just remove. If you love soda, swap it for sparkling water with lime. If you snack late at night, replace chips with nuts or veggies. Make better choices easy and available. 2. Focus on what you can add. Instead of only thinking about what you're giving up, think about what you can add. More vegetables. Healthier proteins. Whole grains. Water instead of sugary drinks. Filling up on good foods makes room for fewer bad ones, without feeling deprived. 3. Make it easy. Set yourself up for success by removing temptation. Don't keep junk food in the house. Avoid fast food routes on your commute. Pre-plan healthier options so they're ready when hunger hits. Your environment shapes your choices more than willpower ever will. Eat less, not harder. The goal of the 80-20 diet isn't to starve yourself. It's to stop wasting your body's energy on foods that harm you. By eliminating the 20% of foods that do the most damage, you free yourself from guilt, cravings, and frustration. You eat better without having to obsess over every bite. And that's how you build a healthier lifestyle that lasts. Chapter 7, Relationships, Who Actually Matters? You have hundreds of contacts but maybe 2 real friends. Let's be brutally honest for a second. You've got hundreds, maybe even thousands, of social media followers. You might have dozens of friends from school, work, or events. You attend gatherings, reply to messages, and keep up appearances. But how many of those people truly matter? How many lift you up when you're down? How many push you toward growth instead of holding you back? How many actually make your life better? If you're like most people, the answer is, not many. And that's okay. Because here's the truth. 80% of your emotional support, joy, and motivation comes from just 20% of your relationships. The rest are either neutral at best, or actively dragging you down at worst. This chapter will help you stop pretending everyone matters equally, and start building a life around the few who truly do. The 80-20 rule applies to people too. We often forget that relationships follow the same patterns as everything else in life. Just like 80% of your sales come from 20% of your clients, and 80% of your productivity comes from 20% of your efforts, the same imbalance shows up in your relationships. It looks like this. 80% of your deep conversations come from 20% of the people you talk to. 80% of your happiness in relationships comes from 20% of your interactions. 80% of your emotional energy is spent on 20% of your circle. That means most of your time and effort goes into people who barely impact your life, while the few who do matter often get lost in the noise. Sound familiar? Then it's time to take a hard look at your relationships, and start applying the 80-20 rule. How to identify your vital few relationships. Before you can invest more in what works, you need to know what is working. Here's how to find your vital few. Step 1. Make a list of your closest relationships. Write down the names of the people you interact with regularly, friends, family, coworkers, partners, mentors, etc. Don't overthink it, just list the top 20 people who occupy your time and emotions. Step 2. Rate each relationship by value. On a scale of 1 to 10, ask yourself, how much does this person add to my life? Do they inspire me, support me, challenge me? Do I feel better after spending time with them? Be honest, even if it hurts. Step 3. Look for patterns. Now look at the scores. Which 20% of people gave you the highest ratings? Which ones gave you the lowest? Those top scorers are your vital few, the people who give you the most value with the least effort. They're the ones worth investing in. Why most people stay stuck in low-value relationships? Even once you identify your vital few, letting go of the rest is hard. Why? Because we confuse presence with connection. Because we fear being alone. Because we worry about hurting feelings. But here's the thing. Spending time with people who don't add value to your life isn't kindness, it's self-sabotage. Here are the main reasons people stay stuck. 1. Guilt. You feel bad saying no to someone who's been there before, even if they're not showing up now. But staying out of guilt only wastes both of your time. 2. Fear of missing out. What if something changes? What if they become important later? Maybe. But betting your present on an uncertain future is a losing game. 3. Social pressure. Society tells us to be inclusive, to say yes, to show up, to stay connected. But real connection isn't about numbers, it's about depth. 4. Habit. Some relationships stick around simply because they've always been there. But just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's helpful. How to let go without guilt. Letting go of low-value relationships doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. Here's how to do it gracefully. 1. Stop initiating contact. You don't have to ghost anyone. Just stop being the one to reach out. Eventually, the relationship will fade naturally, and that's okay. 2. Set boundaries. If you can't fully let go, like with family or coworkers, set clear limits. Say no to extra favors. Limit conversations to specific topics. Keep interactions short and respectful. Boundaries protect your peace. 3. Focus on the vital few. Instead of spreading yourself thin across dozens of weak connections, pour your energy into the few that matter. Call them more often. Invite them deeper. Invest in shared experiences. That's where real relationships grow. Real-life examples of applying 80/20ths to relationships. Example 1. A woman who cut out toxic friends. After years of feeling drained by her social circle, Maria decided to audit her friendships. She realized that 3 people were constantly criticizing her, making her feel small, and never supporting her goals. She stopped hanging out with them, gently but firmly. Within months, she felt lighter. Her confidence grew. She started dating someone new. And she finally had time for hobbies she used to love. All because she removed the weight of negative relationships. Example 2. A man who invested in his top 2 friends. John had a big group of friends he met through work. He spent most weekends going out with them. But over time, he noticed that 2 of them were the only ones who ever showed real interest in his life. So he stopped trying to keep up with the whole group and focused on deepening his bond with those 2. They started hiking together, reading the same books, and giving each other honest feedback. He went from having shallow fun to meaningful connection. You deserve better than draining relationships. Your time, energy, and heart are limited resources. And just like money, you should invest them wisely. Stop wasting your emotional bandwidth on people who don't add value to your life. Start protecting your vital few. Start walking away from the rest. Because the quality of your life is directly tied to the quality of your relationships. And once you apply the 80/20 rule to the people in your life, everything changes. You'll feel lighter, more supported, more motivated, and most importantly, more alive. Chapter 8. Money. Make more by focusing on less. Stop chasing safety, start chasing results. You've probably heard this advice before. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's the traditional wisdom behind diversifying your income, having multiple streams from side hustles, investments, freelance work, or part-time jobs. But here's what nobody tells you. Diversification is often a trap. It makes you feel safer, but it rarely makes you wealthier. Because in reality, 80% of your income comes from just 20% of your efforts. That means 1 client pays more than all the others combined. 1 product or service drives most of your sales. 1 job or role delivers the majority of your paycheck. Instead of chasing more small wins across many fronts, your goal should be to find that high-value source and go all in. Because when you stop spreading yourself thin and start focusing on what already works, that's when your income grows exponentially. The 80/20 rule applies to money, whether you like it or not. The same imbalance shows up everywhere in life, and money is no exception. In business, 80% of revenue comes from 20% of customers. 80% of profits come from 20% of products. 80% of growth comes from 20% of marketing efforts. In personal income, 80% of your earnings come from 20% of your work. 80% of your financial stress comes from 20% of your expenses. 80% of your wealth-building power comes from 20% of your assets. This isn't theory, it's reality. And if you're not actively managing for this imbalance, you're leaving money on the table. How to find your 20% that makes the most money? Before you can scale what works, you need to know what that is. Here's how to find your high-leverage income generator. Step 1. List all your income sources. Write down everything you earn money from. Full-time job, freelance gigs, side hustles, investments, passive income, e.g., royalties, affiliate links, digital products. Be honest, even if some are small or inconsistent. Step 2. Track revenue over time. Use a spreadsheet or app to track how much each source brings in over a month, quarter, or year. Include not just money earned, but also time invested. Ask yourself, which of these gives me the highest return per hour? That's your vital few. Step 3. Look for patterns. Which activity do people consistently pay you for? Which one feels easy compared to the reward? Which one keeps growing naturally? Once you find it, that's where you double down. Real-life examples of applying 80/20ths to income. Example 1. A freelancer who dropped 4 clients to focus on 1. A web designer had 6 clients. She worked long hours trying to keep everyone happy. After analyzing her income, she realized that 1 client paid 75% of her total monthly income, while the other 5 barely covered overhead. She politely let go of the low-paying clients and focused entirely on scaling with the top 1. Result? She reduced her workload by 70%, increased her income by 40%, and started charging higher rates. All because she stopped pretending everything was equal. Example 2. An employee who shifted focus at work. An account manager spent most of his time handling customer support tickets and processing orders. He assumed he was doing his job well, until his boss pointed out that only 2 of his accounts generated any significant revenue. He shifted focus, he delegated the rest to junior staff and spent more time nurturing those top 2 accounts. Within 6 months, he got a promotion, a raise, and a new title. Because he focused on what actually moved the needle. Why side hustles often hurt more than they help. There's nothing wrong with side hustles, unless they become distractions. Most people take on side jobs thinking they'll add extra income. But in reality, side hustles eat up time better spent improving your main source of income. Many don't generate enough to justify the effort. They create burnout, making you less effective at your primary job. If you want to grow your income, ask yourself, is this side hustle pulling its weight? If it's not bringing in at least 20% of your total income, and it's taking up more than 20% of your time, it might be holding you back. Instead of juggling 5 small things, focus on making one thing huge. Your wealth grows where your attention goes. Money doesn't grow from doing more. It grows from doing the right thing, again and again. When you apply the 80/20 rule to your income, you stop wasting time on low-return activities. You stop chasing safety through diversification. You stop pretending every dollar is equally valuable. Instead, you zero in on what already works, and you scale it relentlessly. Because when you focus on less, you make more. Not by accident. By design. Chapter 9, Health and Fitness, Do Less, Get Stronger. More workouts don't mean better results. You've probably heard this before. If you want results, you have to put in the work. That's gym culture in a nutshell. It glorifies long hours, sore muscles, and pushing yourself to exhaustion every day. But here's the truth. More exercise doesn't always mean better health. In fact, doing too much can lead to burnout, injury, and wasted effort. Because when it comes to health and fitness, just like in life and business, the 80/20 rule applies. 80% of your fitness gains come from just 20% of your workouts. The rest? Low-value reps. Endless cardio sessions. Overtraining. Gym time spent going through the motions instead of making progress. Instead of trying to do everything, it's time to focus on what actually works, and stop wasting energy on the rest. The 80/20 rule in fitness, what actually works? Let's break it down. 80% of your muscle growth comes from 20% of your exercises. 80% of your strength gains come from 20% of your training time. 80% of your fat loss comes from 20% of your nutrition choices. 80% of your energy boost comes from 20% of your recovery habits. This isn't about being lazy. It's about being strategic. It's about eliminating fluff so you can double down on what truly moves the needle. How to find your vital few exercises. Before you can eliminate the unnecessary, you need to identify what's actually working for you. Here's how to do it. Step 1. Track your workouts. Use a workout journal or app to log each session for 4 weeks. Include type of exercise, duration, perceived effort, how you felt afterward, progress, e.g., weight lifted, reps, endurance. Step 2. Look for patterns. After a month, ask yourself, which exercises left me feeling stronger? Which ones gave me visible or measurable results? Which ones drain me without delivering anything back? Now look for overlap. Chances are, only a handful of movements, like squats, deadlifts, push-ups, pull-ups, or sprints, are responsible for most of your progress. Those are your vital few. Everything else is just filler. Real-life examples of applying 80/20ths to fitness. Example 1. A man who cut his gym time by half and gained muscle. John used to spend 6 days a week at the gym, doing endless sets and switching routines constantly. He was tired, sore, and not seeing real results. After applying the 80/20 rule, he cut his routine to 3 focused sessions per week, focusing only on compound lifts like squats, deadlifts, and bench press. Within 2 months, he gained 5 pounds of lean muscle and dropped body fat, all while spending half as much time. Because he stopped chasing volume and started focusing on intensity. Example 2. A woman who prioritized recovery over reps. Sarah loved group fitness classes and tried to attend as many as possible. But she was constantly exhausted, had trouble sleeping, and suffered minor injuries. She decided to track how each activity made her feel and perform. She found that high-intensity interval training, HIIT, gave her energy and improved her stamina, but yoga and walking were the only forms of recovery that actually helped her recover. So she eliminated everything else, no more spinning, no more random classes. Result? She got stronger, slept better, and finally enjoyed her workouts again. Apply 80/20ths to recovery, sleep, and mental health. Fitness isn't just about lifting weights or running miles. True health includes recovery, sleep, and mental resilience, and the 80/20 rule applies there too. Here's how. Sleep. 80% of your energy and focus likely comes from 20% of your sleep habits. Maybe cutting out late-night screen time and setting a consistent bedtime gives you 80% of your best sleep. Focus on those 2 things. Ignore the rest. Recovery. 80% of your muscle repair happens during just a few key recovery practices. For most people, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep and taking 1 full rest day per week covers 80% of their recovery needs. Double down on those. Skip the expensive gadgets and gimmicks. Mental health. 80% of your happiness and motivation may come from 20% of your daily habits. Maybe morning walks, journaling, or short meditation sessions give you the majority of your emotional stability. Do more of those. Drop the rest. Strength isn't built in the gym, it's designed outside of it. Real progress in health and fitness doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing the right things consistently. And once you apply the 80/20 rule to your workouts, recovery, and lifestyle habits, you'll start to see something powerful happen. You'll get stronger, with less time wasted. You'll feel better, without burning out. You'll make real progress, without chasing every trend. Because when you stop pretending everything matters equally, you finally have space to focus on what truly moves the needle. Chapter 10. Mastering the Mind. Stop overthinking everything. Most of your thoughts are useless, and they're holding you back. You wake up with a million things running through your head. What if I fail? Did I say the right thing yesterday? Is this the best path forward? What should I do next? Sound familiar? You're not alone. Most people spend more time thinking about doing things than actually doing them. And here's the brutal truth. 80% of your thoughts are useless. They don't lead to action. They don't solve problems. They don't bring clarity. Instead, they create stress, confusion, and paralysis by analysis. This chapter is about breaking that cycle. It's about using the 80/20 rule to master your mind, so you can make better decisions, feel less anxious, and finally move forward without overcomplicating everything. The 80/20 rule applies to your thoughts too. Just like in business, relationships, and fitness, your brain follows the same pattern. 80% of your results come from just 20% of your thinking. That means 80% of your good decisions come from 20% of your planning. 80% of your anxiety comes from 20% of your worries. 80% of your breakthroughs come from 20% of your deep thinking. The rest? Noise. Overthinking. Second guessing. Mental loops that go nowhere. So instead of trying to think harder or plan longer, your goal should be to identify the vital few thoughts that actually move you forward, and eliminate the rest. Because when it comes to your mind, clarity beats complexity every time. How to identify the 20% of thoughts that actually matter? Before you can eliminate the mental clutter, you need to know what belongs in the 20%. Here's how to start. Step 1. Track your thoughts for one day. Yes, really. Write down the thoughts that run through your head during the day, especially the ones that cause worry, hesitation, or distraction. Examples might include: I'm not ready yet. What if they say no? Maybe I should wait until I have a perfect plan. What if I fail? Now look at these thoughts objectively. Ask yourself, which of these thoughts help me take action? Which ones are just noise? Spoiler, most of them are noise. Step 2. Separate thinking from doing. A lot of overthinking happens because we confuse thinking with doing. We believe that if we think hard enough, we'll find the perfect answer, but in reality, most answers only come from action. Try this. Next time you catch yourself stuck in thought, ask, am I thinking to make progress, or am I just avoiding action? If it's the latter, stop thinking and start doing. Because most of the time, doing imperfectly beats thinking perfectly. Step 3. Ask the 80-20 question. Whenever you're stuck in your head, ask, which 20% of this situation is causing 80% of my stress or confusion? Then focus only on that. Let's say you're deciding whether to switch jobs. Instead of getting lost in questions like, what if the new company isn't better? What if I disappoint my current boss? What if I regret the decision later? Focus on the core issue. What are the 2 or 3 biggest reasons I want to leave, and are they worth the risk? Once you answer that, the rest becomes background noise. Real-life examples of applying 80-20ths to the mind. Example 1. A founder who stopped chasing perfection. A startup founder spent weeks refining his pitch deck before meetings with investors. He obsessed over every slide, color, and word choice, convinced that one mistake would cost him funding. After applying the 80-20ths rule, he realized that investors cared far more about his vision and traction than his presentation design. He cut out 80% of the unnecessary polish, focused on the core message, and got funded faster than expected. Because he stopped overthinking the details that didn't matter. Example 2. An employee who let go of approval seeking. An employee constantly worried about what her boss thought of her. She overprepared for meetings, revised emails endlessly, and second-guessed every decision. When she applied the 80-20 rule to her thoughts, she realized that only one thing truly mattered: delivering results. So she stopped obsessing over approval and started focusing on outcomes. Result? Her confidence grew. Her performance improved. And ironically, her boss praised her more than ever. Your brain isn't a problem, it's just misused. Your mind is powerful, but only when used correctly. Most people treat it like an open-loop system: thoughts go in, emotions follow, actions stall. But when you apply the 80-20 rule to your thinking, you start using your mind like a tool, not a trap. You learn to simplify decisions instead of complicating them. Reduce anxiety by focusing on what matters most. Stop obsessing over irrelevant details that slow you down. Because in the end, mastery of your mind isn't about thinking more. It's about thinking less, and acting more on what truly moves the needle. Chapter 11. Building a life that works, on purpose. Life doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design. You didn't wake up one day and magically become successful. You didn't accidentally fall into happiness. And you certainly didn't stumble into freedom by accident. Life doesn't just happen to you, unless you let it. The people who live meaningful, fulfilling lives don't get lucky. They make choices, intentional ones, about how they spend their time, energy, and attention. They understand something most don't. Life is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most, and designing everything else around that. And that's where the 80-20 rule becomes more than just a productivity tool. It becomes a life strategy. The 80-20 mindset, less is more, but only if you choose it. By now, you've seen how the 80-20 rule applies everywhere. In business, 80% of revenue comes from 20% of clients. In relationships, 80% of joy comes from 20% of your connections. In health, 80% of results come from 20% of your efforts. In thinking, 80% of clarity comes from 20% of your thoughts. But knowing this isn't enough. What matters is applying it consistently, not just once, but every single day. Because when you stop letting life happen to you and start designing it on purpose, that's when real transformation begins. How to build systems that work for you. Most people try to change their lives through willpower. They set goals, make resolutions, and hope motivation carries them through. Spoiler, it rarely works. Why? Because willpower is weak compared to systems. A system is a repeatable process that makes success inevitable, even when you're tired, distracted, or unmotivated. Here's how to build 80-20 powered systems. Step 1. Identify your vital few habits. Ask yourself, what are the 20% of daily actions that lead to 80% of my success? Maybe it's writing for 30 minutes each morning, calling your top client once a week, meditating before work, meal prepping for 2 days instead of 7. Find those key habits and build systems around them. Step 2. Eliminate the rest. If a habit or routine isn't moving the needle, remove it. Stop trying to read 50 books a year if only 5 truly impact your mindset. Stop waking up at 5 a.m. if it drains you and doesn't improve your day. Stop checking email every hour if it's not giving you anything useful. Your goal isn't to do more, it's to focus on what actually works. How to structure your day around what matters most. Time blocking is powerful, but only if you use it correctly. Most people block their calendars with back-to-back meetings, errands, and tasks, and wonder why they never get to the important stuff. Instead, apply the 80-20 rule to your schedule. Morning routine, 6 to 9 a.m. Protect your mornings like gold. Spend the first hour doing your vital few, whether that's journaling, reading, working on your biggest project, or exercising. This is when your brain is fresh, and distractions are low. Peak productivity, 9 to 11 a.m. Do your most important work during your highest energy hours. Don't waste this time on emails, social media, or busy work. Use it to create, strategize, and move the needle. Afternoon recovery, 1 to 4 p.m. Schedule lower energy tasks here, things like admin work, planning, or light communication. Avoid making big decisions in the afternoon. Your brain is already running on fumes. Evening reflection, 7 to 8 p.m. Take 15 minutes to reflect on what worked and what didn't. Did you protect your vital few today? Did you eliminate unnecessary tasks? What can you adjust tomorrow? This simple habit creates compounding growth over time. You can't have everything, but you can have what truly matters. At the end of the day, life is not about having it all. It's about choosing what matters most and saying no to everything else. That's the real power of the 80-20 rule. It's not just about working less or earning more. It's about living better, with more freedom, more meaning, and more control. So ask yourself, what are the 20% of choices I make every day that lead to 80% of my happiness, success, and fulfillment? Once you know the answer, build your life around those. And let go of the rest. Because when you design your life on purpose, and not by default, you finally start living the life you deserve. Now go do it. You now have the tools, strategies, and mindset to apply the 80-20 rule to every area of your life. But knowledge without action is just entertainment. So take one step today. Identify one thing, just one, that gives you 80% of your results. Focus on that. Let go of the rest. And watch your life begin to change. Because success isn't about doing more. It's about doing what truly matters, and doing it relentlessly. Chapter 12, The Daily 80/20ths, How to Live This Every Day. It's not enough to understand 80/20, you have to live it. By now, you understand the power of the 80/20 rule. You know that most results come from a small minority of causes. You've seen how it applies to time, money, relationships, health, and even your thoughts. But understanding isn't enough. Because knowledge without action is just theory. And theory doesn't change lives. Only consistent practice does. This chapter gives you the tools, rituals, and daily habits to make 80/20 thinking second nature, so you stop wasting time on what doesn't matter and start focusing on what truly moves the needle. Every single day. The daily 80/20 mindset, less is more, but only if you choose it daily. Living the 80/20 lifestyle doesn't mean doing less just for the sake of it. It means doing what matters most, and letting go of everything else. Every day presents new choices, distractions, and demands on your time and energy. The 80/20 mindset helps you cut through the noise and stay focused on what really counts. Here's how to build that mindset into your daily routine. Morning ritual, start your day with purpose. Your morning sets the tone for the rest of your day. If you start scattered, distracted, or reactive, you'll stay that way. Instead, use your morning to get clear on what matters most today. Step 1. Ask yourself the 80/20 question. What are the 20% of things I could do today that would give me 80% of my desired results? Write down your top 1 or 2 priorities. Then forget the rest, at least for now. Step 2. Eliminate distractions before they start. Don't check email or social media first thing. Give yourself at least 30 minutes of undisturbed time to focus on your vital few. This is your time to create, plan, or take action, not react. Midday check-in, stay ruthlessly focused. By midday, momentum starts to fade. Meetings, messages, and minor tasks begin to pile up. This is where most people lose control of their day. So build in a simple 5-minute check-in to keep yourself aligned. Step 1. Review what you've done so far. Ask, have I spent my time on the 20% that matters most? If yes, great. Keep going. If no, reset immediately. Step 2. Cut or delegate the rest. Look at your to-do list and ask, which of these tasks could be deleted, delegated, or delayed? Let go of anything that doesn't directly support your top priorities. Remember, saying no to the trivial many is how you say yes to the vital few. Evening reflection, learn and adjust. At the end of each day, take 5 to 10 minutes to reflect. This builds awareness, accountability, and consistency. Step 1. Did you focus on the vital few? Be honest. Did you protect your top priorities? Did you eliminate low-value tasks? Did you avoid distractions? If not, why? Use this reflection to adjust tomorrow. Step 2. What can you improve tomorrow? Identify one small change you can make. Maybe wake up 15 minutes earlier to plan. Block off time for your key task before meetings. Turn off notifications during work blocks. One small improvement compounds over time. Tools and questions to keep you aligned. To make living the 80/20ths easier, here are some practical tools and prompts you can use daily. Daily questions to ask yourself. What are the 20% of tasks that drive 80% of my results? Which people give me 80% of my joy and support? What habits drain me the most, and how can I eliminate them? What am I doing today out of habit, not choice? What can I say no to today to protect my time and energy? Habit building prompts. Every Sunday night, identify your top 3 priorities for the week. Every morning, write down your 1 most important task, MIT. Every evening, reflect on whether you protected that MIT. Once a week, audit your schedule and remove 1 low-value activity. Real-life example, a busy professional who transformed her life. Maria was a marketing manager overwhelmed by her workload. She tried every productivity hack, time blocking, apps, planners, but still felt like she was spinning her wheels. After applying the daily 80/20ths, she made 3 simple changes. Each morning, she identified her one most important task, MIT, usually writing content or strategy planning. She blocked off 2 hours for that task before any meetings. At the end of the day, she reviewed if she protected that time and adjusted if she didn't. Within a month, her output improved dramatically. Her stress dropped. Her boss noticed. All because she stopped trying to do everything and started doing what mattered most. Living the 80/20 isn't hard, just consistent. You don't need a complicated system to live the 80/20 rule. You just need to ask the right questions every day. Make small, intentional choices. Stay focused on what actually moves the needle. Because success isn't about doing more. It's about doing the right things, again and again. And when you make 80/20 thinking part of your daily rhythm, that's when real, lasting transformation begins. You now have everything you need, go use it. Conclusion: the freedom of less. You don't need to do more, you need to do what matters most. You've reached the end of this book, but really, you're just getting started. Because now you understand something most people never do. Not all effort is equal. Most people live their lives reacting to what's urgent instead of focusing on what's important. They chase every opportunity, try to please everyone, and fill their schedules with endless tasks, only to wonder why they're exhausted, overwhelmed, and not seeing real results. But you know better now. You've seen how the 80/20 rule applies to every area of life. 80% of your income comes from 20% of your efforts. 80% of your happiness comes from 20% of your relationships. 80% of your results come from 20% of your time. And now it's up to you to act on that knowledge. Because understanding the rule isn't enough. You have to live it. Embracing 80/20 is not a hack, it's a mindset shift. This book didn't give you a shortcut. It gave you a new way of thinking. A way of looking at your work, your time, your relationships, and your goals through a lens of clarity and intention. The 80/20 rule isn't about being lazy. It's about being strategic. It's about recognizing that doing less doesn't mean achieving less, it often means achieving more, with far less stress and wasted energy. When you stop pretending everything matters equally, you finally have space to focus on what truly moves the needle. The real freedom of living 80/20. Freedom doesn't come from having more money, more time, or more options. Real freedom comes from choosing what matters most and letting go of the rest. That kind of freedom looks like more time for the people and projects you love. Less stress from chasing things that don't matter. More energy because you stopped wasting it on low-value tasks. Greater fulfillment because you're no longer living on autopilot. That's the gift of the 80/20 rule. It gives you back what modern life tries to steal from you every day. Your time. Your attention. Your peace. Now it's up to you. This book has given you the tools. You now know how to identify the vital few in every area of life. Eliminate the trivial many without guilt. Focus ruthlessly on what delivers real value. Build daily habits that reinforce this mindset. But none of this will matter unless you take action. So here's your challenge. Start small. Pick one area of your life, just one, where you'll apply the 80/20 rule this week. Maybe it's your work. Maybe it's your schedule. Or maybe it's your relationships. Ask yourself, what are the 20% of things here that give me 80% of my results? Then eliminate, delegate, or minimize the rest. Do that consistently, and watch your life begin to change. Do less. Achieve more. Live better. At the end of the day, success isn't about how much you do. It's about how much you accomplish that actually matters. And once you start living by the 80/20 rule, you'll realize something incredible. You don't need to do it all. You just need to do the right things, and do them well. So go ahead. Stop chasing everything. Start dominating what matters. And finally, get more done, with less. Because that's the true power of the 80/20 rule. And that's how you live a life of purpose, progress, and freedom. This book doesn't want your attention. It wants your action. You now know what matters most. You've seen where the 80-20 rule shows up in your time, work, relationships, and life. You've been given the tools to eliminate the trivial many and focus on the vital few. So there's only one thing left to do. Stop reading. Start doing. Start eliminating what doesn't matter. Start focusing on what truly moves the needle. Start building a life that works, on purpose. Because success isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, and doing it relentlessly. Do less. Achieve more. Live better.